found my thrill on Blueberry Hill.
It's 1957 and the Perry family have never had it so good. Moving into this delightful two-bedroom bungalow, and they've really pushed the boat out. Theirs for £2,500. By Jove.
Mr. Perry, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Now, this must have been the idyllic family home back in 1957.
It was. My dad found this spot about to be developed in a small way, fronting a dairy farm, and the garden that you now see in front of us is as it was sold 50 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tremendous garden. It's really big, great views, and there's loads of wildlife I've seen around your garden.
Yes, I would almost say it's a sort of unofficial nature reserve, whether it's bee orchids, falcons, herons, woodpeckers. It's a wildlife paradise. Even before we put it on the market, we had a lot of developers and private buyers writing to us, beseeching us to get rid of it. When we put it on the market, within a week, we had about 30 inquiries and about 7 or 8 big offers. And I gather that our bungalow will bite the dust as soon as we move out, and the house to my left.
Yeah.
And in its place will be 5 luxury houses overlooking the golf course.
Are you surprised that this very green garden is officially considered a brownfield site?
I know what brownfield sites are because I've worked in inner London, places like Hackney, and this is actually, it's a ridiculous idea that this is a brownfield site. In the absence of government or council constraints on these things, what can you do? We are the victim of market forces.
Oh, life could be a dream if I could take you up in paradise up above.
Just down the road in the Hampshire village of Compton, they're fighting development.
Life could be a dream, sweetheart. Hello, hello again. Shaboom, and hoping we'll meet again. Oh, life could...
We are threatened by development which will involve very large houses, which we feel both in mass as well as height are unsuitable for this area. These are going to be very large houses, and by that I mean 6, 7 bedrooms, and on one of them there's a possibility it may be even larger than that. Now, this is totally inappropriate for a conservation area.
If the Compton houses get the go-ahead, this will be their view. A Grade 2-star listed cottage, some internationally renowned topiary, and, ironically, one of England's few listed gardens.
Watch out, here I come.
It's 1985, the property market is booming, and Dave Wells from Bournemouth has a Filofax chock-a-block with plans to become a developer as big as his shoulder pads.
In the 1980s, it was ever so good. Everything I was touching was turning to gold.
This high roller's set on buying up Bournemouth. He's got 500 properties, never sells any of them, and says he's providing affordable homes in a housing crisis. And doing exactly what government policy dictates, higher density in existing communities, rather than moving in on Greenbelt. So he's always on the lookout for potential infill sites.
We have 10 gardens at the moment in Cardigan Road in this direction. We are hoping to buy some more gardens because we can extend it right to the end of the road. We also own gardens on the other side, quite a way down the road there as well. A garden is worth what you can build on it. So a garden, a building plot would be an average of £50,000. So a garden could be worth as much as £50,000 for one dwelling. If you could get more than one dwelling on there, it could be worth considerably more. This is a prime example of good use of garden land. We had a big piece of garden land here which was absolutely no good to anybody at all, and we purchased the house with part of the garden, and we bought the garden off the people next door, put 2 pieces of the garden together, and we built 6 flats. I think the house owes us about 150, and I think we actually paid about 25,000 for the garden. So at the end of the day, very good deal. We already owned the garages here. So with the garages and the 2 gardens, we built 3 bungalows. I feel that these 2 houses here have plenty of garden. I still think they have more than enough garden. And the bungalows also have their own gardens, so there is no shortage of garden. We don't have any problems renting the bungalows, and we've never had any complaints from the occupiers of the houses on the front. Obviously, one of the houses we still own, and that is rented as well. But we've never had any complaints from anybody else.
No complaints here either. The West Sussex garden of designer turned property consultant to Wimpey Homes, Wayne Hemingway. While all for building affordable homes, he says losing 30,000 gardens a year to do so is too great a sacrifice.
I've got 4 kids, and when I ask them what's their favourite bit of the garden, you know, to a boy and a girl, they've always said the den, Dad, that we've built together, and it's probably a hazard. It's probably dangerous when they get on it, but that's part of it. You know, when you think back, you know, I'm now, you know, 47. And looking back on when I was a kid and with my pop and my nan and my mum, the best thing that I can ever remember is getting outside and banging things into a bit of wood and building things. And so take away this kind of privacy and the intimacy of what you can do with your parents. Take that away from kids, and no wonder we moan about them going out on the streets in our town centres on a Thursday, Friday night, and we won't go there because they're too rowdy, so we go off to the gastropubs. More on sustainability, as we don't use our town centres and get in our cars and drive out. You know, there's more to it. There's so many knock-on effects of losing our gardens.
When I was young, I'd listen to the radio, waiting for my favourite song.
It's 1973 and Dave and Sue Young have just bought their dream house for £18,000. And it doesn't matter what their garden's worth, they're not going anywhere.
Such happy times and not so long ago.
But while gardens are all classed as brownfield sites, the Youngs are finding theirs actively targeted with one offer of £100,000 for just a few metres of garden.
So how do you think the developers found out about your site here?
Well, to our horror, we found out that we were actually on the District Council website for potential development land, a good brownfield site for development. From about March to about October, we get usually a letter a month from different developers offering us different options of what to do with our house and garden. When I actually phoned one of the developers who'd sent us a second letter, which was actually quite aggressive, I said, please just leave us alone. We find it quite disturbing that you keep after our property. And he said, well, your garden's underused anyway. And I said, well, I don't understand how you can say that because it's used a great deal.
What would persuade you to give it up?
I just don't want to sell. I've been here for 30 years and my children and now my grandchildren have all played in the garden. I just don't want to sell.
One letter we had said we'd like to help you start the next stage of your life, and we don't actually feel that we've finished this stage yet.
Garden grabbing is a serious issue because, you know, it's not classed as greenbelt when probably it should be, because gardens, you know, they've got biodiversity, but more than that, they're places where human beings can get outside in a green space. So what's the difference between that and a green belt? There's lots of underdeveloped and undeveloped brownfield sites which are more difficult to bring to market and take longer and cost more. But if that's the case, we're just going to have to work harder at doing that. But it would be so sad if we get rid of houses with lovely big gardens. I mean, we're very lucky here. We've got a big garden, you know, with a big company, we've earned the money. And it doesn't have to be this size, you know, just enough to do something. I think we'll get to the point in a not too distant future where gardens are valued more by planning and by the government, and it's being talked about a lot at the moment. It just seems to be slow that we're still allowing it to go on, and as we do it, we're losing thousands and thousands every year and we can't get them back.
It's a big job, isn't it, moving house? I mean, this has got to...
Mrs. Perry and her son are moving out of Hampshire completely to a bungalow in Shropshire.
50 years on, this is a massive move for you, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
How do you feel? You've been through so much here. How do you feel getting ready to go?
I have my moments.
Oh, here you go. There we go.
I always wanted to live in Oliver's Battery, and I have my wish.
I think, regrettably, this could be the catalyst for considerable changes in this particular suburb in a big way, because other people will look at this and realise that it can be done where they live.
Sweetheart.